You know, you ever look in the mirror and have one of those moments where you're just like, huh, that's me. It's a weirdly human thing, right? Well, what if a fish did the same thing? Today, we are diving into this incredible scientific showdown that all kicked off with that one simple idea, a tiny fish looking at itself. So how can this little guy possibly challenge 50 years of established science? Well, for almost half a century, there's been this one single test, kind of the gold standard for figuring out animal self-awareness. And it is so tough, so tough that almost no species has ever passed it. And then along comes this cleaner wrasse, this little reef fish, and it basically threatens to blow up everything we thought we knew. Okay, so back in 2018, researchers made this claim that was just explosive. They said a cleaner wrasse fish passed the ultimate test for animal self-awareness. Now, this isn't just some fun little trivia fact you'd hear at an aquarium. No, this was a direct challenge to our whole understanding of animal intelligence and even the tools we use to measure it. And to really get why this was such a bombshell, we gotta understand the test itself. All right, section one, the exclusive mirror club. Let's pull back the curtain on this club and take a look at the test that, basically acts as its bouncer. So it's called the Mirror Self-Recognition Test, or MSR for short. And on the surface, it sounds pretty simple, but trust me, its implications are huge. It was developed way back in 1970 to answer one big question. Does an animal get that the thing looking back at it in the mirror is actually itself? The most famous way they do this is with something called the mark test. And here's the breakdown of how that mark test actually works. Step one, you just let the animal get used to having a mirror around. Simple enough. Step two, the sneaky part. Researchers put a little mark on the animal's body, like on its forehead or its throat, somewhere it absolutely cannot see without that reflection. And step three is the big one, the observation. If the animal sees that mark in the mirror, and then, this is the crucial part, touches or investigates the mark on its own body, that's it. That's the pass. That's the smoking gun for self-recognition. Yeah, and this test has been the benchmark for decades. It all started with chimps back in 1970. A couple of years later, we figured out that our own toddlers usually pass it around age 2. And then over the years, a few other really smart social animals managed to get in. Dolphins in 2001, elephants in 2006. But look at that timeline. The list has always been incredibly, incredibly short. Just look at this list. This is like the VIP section of the animal kingdom, right? We're talking great apes, chimps, orangutans, bonobos, bottlenose dolphins, orcas, Asian elephants, even the super smart Eurasian magpie. And that's pretty much it. This is why the idea of a little reef fish just waltzing into this elite club was so shocking. It's what kicked off this whole massive debate. And that brings us right to the heart of it. Section 2, a scientific showdown. This is the fish versus, get this, the guy who invented the test in the first place. So, in one corner, we've got the challenger, evolutionary biologist Alex Jordan. He's the one who led the study, and his claim is simple. The cleaner wrasse passes the mark test, period. But in the other corner, you have the gatekeeper, Gordon Gallup Jr., the man who created the test. And his rebuttal? He says the results are fuzzy, that they don't really prove self-awareness, and that there's a much simpler explanation for what the fish is doing. And Gallup has always been the test's biggest defender, which also makes him its toughest critic. He's basically argued for years that a lot of researchers are, well, they're a little too eager to see intelligence where it might not be, that they read too much into fuzzy behavior to, and this is a direct quote, salvage the intellectual integrity of their favorite laboratory animals. Oof. And look, the skeptics had some really good points. Here's the case against the fish. First, the mark they used, it was a brown dot. And guess what looks like a brown dot to a cleaner wrasse? A parasite. That's literally what these fish eat for a living. So is it really self-recognition, or is it just trying to scrape off what it thinks is lunch? Second, maybe the fish could just feel the injection, like an irritation, and seeing its reflection just triggered a response to that feeling. It's a fair question. Okay, but this is where the story gets really good. Because instead of just getting into a war of words, the researchers went back to the lab. It was time for the fish to fight back with data. Section 3, the fish fights back. So in 2022, they published a follow-up study, and in it, Alex Jordan's team just systematically took apart every single criticism one by one with a bunch of really clever new experiments. This is the scientific method at its absolute best. Alright, first up, let's tackle that biggest criticism. The fish is just reacting to a mark that looks like a parasite. So, was it just trying to get a snack? How on earth do you even test for that? Well, the solution was actually simple and totally brilliant. They just tried different colored marks. And look at the results here. When they used a brown mark, the one that looks like a parasite, yep, the fish scraped at it. But when they used a green mark, nothing. A blue mark, no scraping at all. This was huge. It showed the scraping wasn't just some random behavior. It was a very specific response. Alright, criticism number 2. The fish can simply feel the mark's injection. What if it was just an itch? What if the whole thing had nothing to do with the mirror at all? So to test this, they compared 2 different types of injections. The standard one, which was super shallow, less than a millimeter deep, and then a deeper one, about 3 millimeters, that was actually designed to be irritating. The results were crystal clear. With that deep, itchy injection, the fish scraped its throat all the time. Didn't matter if there was a mirror or not. But with the standard shallow mark, the fish only scraped when the mirror was there. That was a game changer. Okay, but there was one last, really smart criticism left. Criticism number 3. Maybe it's just reacting to seeing a mark on any fish. Maybe it saw a marked fish in its reflection and just instinctively went to check itself. So how do you prove it knows the reflection is its own? This experiment was just so elegant. They put a marked fish in a tank and let it see another marked fish through a piece of glass. Now, if the skeptics were right, seeing that mark on its body should have made it scrape itself. The result? This big, beautiful number right here. 0. A big, fat 0. Not a single one of the fish tried to scrape its own throat after seeing a mark on another fish. That pretty much proved it. It had to be their own reflection. So the fish passed. Case closed, right? It passed with flying colors. But just when you think you have it all figured out, the story takes this amazing turn. The whole debate shifts. It's no longer about whether the fish is self-aware, but whether the mirror test is even the right test to begin with. Time for section 4, rethinking the reflection. And here is the biggest twist of all. Alex Jordan, the researcher who just went to all this trouble to prove rigorously that the fish passes the test, he's now one of the biggest people questioning the test itself. He's basically saying, hey, maybe the mirror test isn't actually testing for this huge abstract idea of self-awareness. Maybe it's just measuring one very specific skill. And this idea has cracked open a whole new way of thinking. Because if a test that was designed for apes, these super visual animals, doesn't work for most other species, well, maybe the problem isn't the animals. Maybe the problem is the test. Maybe we need to design new tests, new kinds of mirrors that are actually tailored to how different animals experience their world. Think about dogs, right? They always fail the classic mirror test. But then this researcher, Alexandra Horvitz, designed what she called an olfactory mirror test, a smell mirror. She took a dog's own urine sample and added a new weird scent to it, basically an odor mark. And what she found was that the dogs spent way more time sniffing their own sample when that mark was there. It's the same question, just asked in a language a dog actually speaks. So, in the end, that tiny cleaner RAS did so much more than just make us rethink fish intelligence. It held up a mirror to us, to our own scientific methods. It forced us to ask, are we even using the right tools? This little fish proved that if a mirror designed for a primate doesn't work, then it's on us to invent new ways to peek into the minds of other animals. And that leaves us with the real question, doesn't it? If a mirror can't show us, what will we find when we finally learn how to look?